Creators, there's nothing more frustrating than to be shooting content, live stream, Zoom meeting, whatever, and have your camera suddenly shut off. As you will know if you spend any time on the web looking at modding cameras, many of them have thermodynamic properties that causes the cameras to shut off mid doing whatever. Now, recently, I had my favorite camera that I've been using on this channel for almost 4 years just give up the ghost one day and die. I primarily believe it's because I live in the tropics. My basement is here all the time. The camera stays on, it never goes off. But I did a firmware update, which was fine. And then I went to go set the white balance and the shutter closed and locked. And this is a common thing that's going on with the original versions of the ZV-E10s. A whole bunch of people have talked about it, but I'm like, no biggie. I have one of my favorite cameras in my arsenal here, and this is the Sony ZV-E1. This camera is amazing. It looks beautiful when I'm using it for this kind of content or for live streams, whatever. However, this guy normally lasts about 18-20 minutes before it gets mad and it was shut off. So I did what any normal person would do, go to YouTube and look for a solution. It was suggested that you buy this little fan, okay? So this fan is made by Ulanzi, and I would say that it probably does work for some people, but it didn't work for me. So it's battery operated, and there's a little air gap here, and you put it on, and it supposedly makes your camera a little bit cooler. So what you would do is open the back like such, and then you place this guy in here and snap it in, and then there you'd have a fan that's working in your camera like such, and you had 2 speeds. You can go fast mode, which was a little loud, and then you had the regular mode, and then off. And then what it would do is it would give you a temperature to let you know how your camera is doing. Well, I added this fan, and it couldn't do much more than add maybe an additional 10 minutes. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, we're screwed. I have this lovely camera that shoots amazing picture, and it does not like being on long enough to do a live stream. For my standard outside shooting videos, content where I'm just, going to say something 5 and 6 minutes at a time, doesn't matter. It would be perfectly fine. But when I'm trying to use it for a live stream where I need a minimum 1.5 to 2 hours because, your boy runs his mouth, it was not going to work, right? I tried it, didn't work. Okay, did all the firmware updates on it, make sure everything was good, didn't work. And then my buddy, Mr. Camera Junkie, put me onto something because I was going to go grab the small rig fan. And he said, you need to check out this Koertacoo fan. And I looked at it and I'm like, screw for screw, size for size, dimension for dimension. That looks exactly like the small rig fan, only it's cheaper. And it's made out of metal. So like they can't really do much to make it more terrible. I go, let me give it a shot. So you take this guy, it comes with 3 different cases. This particular case is made for the ZV-E1. They have for the A7 IV and the ZV-E10. They have for the Fuji X series cameras, and it comes with a Canon R series little mount. This mount automatically fits better because, as a matter of fact, if I bring back the Ulanzi here and push it in there, it pops out fairly easily. So it doesn't want to stay in. It just pops right out. This guy is different because there's this flat panel here, and this uses something known as a Peltier cooling style. And I have something very similar for my busted ass knee. So I'm like, I know how this works. This is cool. When this is touching, there's still that huge air gap. And so it just didn't seem to do much. Also, if you're running something with a battery, the battery as it's draining is generating heat. Didn't make much sense. This guy, you pop it in. Now it can't be operated by battery. You do have to plug in the cable. However, when you turn it on, you got to hold the button for a second. It turns on and it gives you a little readout here. Now this goes down to 12 degrees. Okay, so I push it down here to 12 and I'll let that sucker run. Okay, so my first test, I only dropped it down to 20 because I had it in my head that at 20, at least the fan would be quiet and it wouldn't make too much noise. And with this particular test at that size, I was astonished when I got the results for the test. I'm going to bring up a little screenshot here. And I'm like, well, shuck-e-dern. That, my friends, is actually pretty cool. But I'm like, can I go farther? So I devised a little test. I went back over here and I cranked this sucker down all the way to 12. And then I took small rig VB99 Pro battery like such, and I took a Z dummy battery like such. I placed it upon this Sony like such. Get in there like swimwear. I plugged this little guy in like such, and I fired up the old camera, and I began my little test. And man, can I tell you the surprise that I had? I said, surprise, surprise, family. I cannot tell you how amazing this was. So I began my little test, and it started out a little bit like this. And I was like, okay, this is cool. So I have this camera plugged into a M4 Mac Mini running Ecamm, and I just put the timer on Ecamm to just let it run. And I said, I'm going to set this guy up to do 4K capture off of this camera at 4K 30, and started the clock, and I let it run. And then I was like, okay, I went and I did a whole live stream. It was still running. I went and did a whole Zoom class with my members, and it was running. I watched the rest of the Manchester United game, and it was running. I said, okay, I'm going to go to dinner with my family, and it was running. And I came back. I'm telling you now, family, listen, it has me tickled pink. I came back, and 605 minutes later, it was still running. But I looked at my small rig, and it was like, you got 2% battery left. So I let Tim cook, and this guy ran. Let me speed this up a little bit so you don't have to watch the whole thing. It got all the way down to 617 minutes, 18 seconds, and some change. And then, and only then, did it finally turn off, or 12 seconds and some change. And that is because the small rig battery ran out. Over 10 hours and 18 minutes, this sucker ran like a champ. And I know it's actually a minute longer than what it says on here because it took me that long to get the test set up because I was doing it while I was live talking to my people. And so they know there was an extra minute there, but over 10 hours it ran, and it only stopped because the small rig ran out. So I will confidently say, if you need a cooling fan for your camera, look no further than this Koertacoo or one of its twins, because there's about 12 different brands, including small rig. They all look exactly the same. Pick one of these suckers and put it on your hot camera and let it go. This guy was absolutely phenomenal. So I'm going to say, without a doubt, if you have a camera that's getting a little toasty and you needed to get Koertacoo, pick up a Koertacoo cooler. I'll put links in the description. This is sold under a whole bunch of different brands, including small rig. So if you want to try the small rig run because you trust them better, go. I took a gamble on this one. I said, worst case scenario, I'll give up and buy the small rig. But this thing worked absolutely phenomenal. So I can finally put my dang studio back together. And I am so surprised by this. I was like, after my experience with the Ulanzi one, and I'm not saying Ulanzi products are bad. I love Ulanzi product. That Ulanzi product did not work for my scenario. If you're deciding between this and here, get this one. Now, there is a new version of this that comes with an external battery pack, which makes sense because now you're bringing the heat further away from the camera. But I'm like, this is in the studio. I don't need the battery pack version, and it costs a little more because you're getting an extra battery. So this is the guy. This is the guy. And if you're going to run this outside, just connect it to your V-mount or some other extra power source that you bring in order to let his baby go. So I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. I'll put links in the description. And you know what I say right here? I do not know who needed to see this. I did long before. But if it was you, let me know in the comment section below. If you have a camera that likes to keep it toasty warm, let me know what it is in the thing so everybody else, in case they're reading the comments, they can figure out if it'll work with their situation. Right about now, the algorithm's going to show you another video they think you should watch, and I agree with them.
I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George, I hop in the Porsche, it's 5 and a horse, I'm ready for war, I'm coming for throats, to turn to a ghost, I need to know everything. Now you be surprised at the info you get is by letting them talk, so I'm letting them talk. Gotta keep quiet, maneuver in silence to let them in talk.